speak to, I suppose you would say, one of the most famous lawyers in this field,
Mr.
Nick
Loophole.
Freeman, Mr. Loophole.
Good morning, Nick. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for chatting to us. Nick, are you shocked by these figures, or is clearly you're an insider? You know why this is happening.
I'm shocked that anyone is actually offered a course for using a mobile phone. Using a mobile phone, the penalty increased in March 2017 from 3 to 6 points. And recent research shows that actually using a mobile phone is an equal distraction, whether it be handheld or free, as drink driving. And so can you imagine the outcry if we said, well, if you caught drink driving, we'll offer you a course. What's the difference between that and using a mobile phone? There should be no courses whatsoever for using a mobile phone. I'm surprised that only 40% of people are actually taking up the course because it's as an alternative to 6 points. I don't think that's nearly enough. In my view, if you're caught using a mobile phone, it should be exactly the same sentence as drink driving. It should be a year's disqualification, capable of reduction if you, in fact, of 25% if you do a course. Because it's exactly the same level of distraction, and you're in fact 4 more times likely to have an accident when you are using a mobile phone or when you are drink driving at just above the legal limit. So that sort of puts it into some sort of perspective. I think it's very tardy of any police force to offer a course. The courses were abandoned when the penalty increased, but they seem now to have been reintroduced. And of course, people are much happier to take a course rather than 6 points. And of course, most people don't even have enhanced insurance premiums as a consequence of taking a course. I think there's only one insurance company who actually increases the insurance premium as a consequence of taking a course.
Nick, your line isn't brilliant, but there are some people that are getting, their punishments overturned because of the course, but also there are some people who are getting away with it because of technicalities around the language. And we spoke to Barry Speaker earlier, who's a lawyer from Sinton's Law, saying, you can still, it's to do with communication and the way that you use your mobile phone. So somebody who was filming an accident whilst driving got off with it because of the language. That's extraordinary.
The first case on this point actually was it was Jimmy Carr's case. It was actually a case I defended 10 years ago, and I argued in that case that he was recording a joke, and he was acquitted. And he was acquitted because he wasn't actually involved in an interactive communication. So the mobile phone, you have to be engaged in an interactive communication to fall foul of this specific legislation. But there is a plethora of other legislation which you can be charged for, and it's entirely up to the police.
On the Jimmy Carr case, was he not communicating a joke into a device?
No, he was recording. He was recording a joke on his phone. It's well documented.
But what I'm saying is exactly what you're saying. But he was communicating into a device.
Yes, that's not an interactive communication. It wasn't engaged.
It's interactive is the big word. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So if for example, or somebody like him, it's known as Carr's law. So this law goes back 10 years. I mean, there's a whole hoo-ha about this case a few weeks ago. The chap actually argued it wasn't him, it was his son initially, and then at the Crown Court he changed his argument. But putting that on one side, this is old, well-established law. The statute for mobile phones says very clearly, very unequivocally, you have to be involved in an interactive communication. But you could be charged with driving without due care and attention if you pick your phone up. You could be charged with not being in such a position as to be in control of the vehicle. The police have to charge properly, and if they get it wrong, if someone's picking up his phone and looking at his clock, and they charge under the specific mobile phone legislation, they're going to lose. And I suspect that police forces are now offering these courses because they take the lazy approach and they think, oh, these cases are a bit hard to prove. We need to make sure we do the job properly. We're not up to speed, so we're not doing that. So why don't we get a bit of catch-up?
Nick, I'm sure there are some people listening. Sorry, I'm sure there's some people listening thinking, wait a minute, this isn't about the police being lazy. They're stretched to their absolute limits. They, do they necessarily have to be absolute experts in every manner of the law? Isn't this just people actually being a little bit immoral, trying to get off with some shocking behaviour. Gail in Ponteland has texted us saying anybody found to be texting or using a mobile phone should face a ban. I work in a racing yard. Earlier this year, there was a horrible accident. The side of the wagon was taken off. Our driver and boss are still living with the damage mentally and physically. I also know a young girl who lost her mum and a dad. She was just 10 years old. Surely there is no greater message than paying with somebody's life.
Yeah, I agree with her completely. And the police don't have to be experts in all the law, but of course it's the police who enforce the law. And it's important they are trained. It's important that they get it right. And I know we don't like to criticise the police, but if they involve themselves in sloppy conduct and can't be bothered getting their head around exactly what's happened, they're the people who arrest. They're the people who charge. And it's important they get it right. And it's not particularly complex. They stop someone, they see what they're doing, they speak to them. It's for them to make sure that person is charged appropriately. And if they get it wrong, then the person will be acquitted. Now, that to me sounds a very fair system. I'm not in any way suggesting, I completely agree with your previous list, the lady you just commented on. It's appallingly dangerous. I've already said it's as dangerous as drink driving. It should be prohibited and it should be enforced properly. And it isn't. And that, unfortunately, is the fault of the police. You're never going to stop people using a mobile phone unless possibly you introduce a penalty which polices itself. For example, instead of messing around with the points and increasing them from 3 to 6 as they did in March 2017, why not say it's as dangerous as drink driving, therefore we're going to impose the same sentence? Would people then be tempted to take the same risk if they thought, well, actually, I'm going to lose my license for 12 months? I think it's a sentence which would actually police itself, and I think it's a sentence that makes enormous sense because it equates with the same level of distraction. And I've said for a long time that's what needs to happen because we don't have enough police on our roads for a whole variety of different reasons, and that's not necessarily the fault of the police. And so we need something to deal with this. And sending people on courses instead of a punishment is not the answer at all. In my view, it's a complete let-off, and it shouldn't happen.
Nick Freeman, thank you very much for joining us.